Hallelujah! Shalom family. Greetings to the 12 tribes of Yashral scattered abroad. Welcome. In this video we're going to talk about eating at the table of demons. What comes to mind when I mention things such as a Valentine's Day candy, or Easter candy, Easter dinner, Halloween candy, or Thanksgiving dinner, Christmas candy, Christmas dinner, or birthday cake, or something as simple as saying grace or blessing food in the name of a foreign mighty one. If you are Bani Yashral, if you are an Israelite, all of these things are an abomination before Yah. Eating at the table of demons, or eating food sacrificed to idols. We need to talk about eating as a form of worship or service. Idolatry and adultery. Balaam and Balak. Isabel or Jezebel. The Jerusalem Council. Warnings from the Messiah, and then we're going to get into dealing with the letters of Shaul or Paul. And at the end, we'll have a Bible quiz. Now, if you feel like you have mastered this subject, you can go ahead and skip to the end and test your mettle with the Bible quiz. So let's continue. When we read the Bible, particularly the version of the King James, we need to understand Old English terms. So meat means food, whether it comes from a plant or an animal. Meat is just a general term for food. Flesh is referring to animal-based food. So when we go into these sacrifices and it talks about meat, meat means all kinds of food, not just in modern English where we talk about meat, we're talking about an animal, but meat in Old English includes vegetables and fruits and anything else that may be eaten. Let's start in Wa'ikra, Leviticus chapter 7. Likewise is the Torah of the trespass offering, it is most set apart. In the place where they kill the burnt offering shall they kill the trespass offering, and the blood thereof shall he sprinkle round about the altar, and he shall offer all of it. And he shall offer of it all the fat thereof, the rump, and the fat that covers the inwards, and the 2 kidneys, and the fat that is on them, which is by the flanks, and the caul that is above the liver, with the kidneys, it shall he take away. And the priest shall burn them upon the altar for an offering made by fire unto Yahuwah. It is a trespass offering. Every male among the priests shall eat thereof. It shall be eaten in the set apart place. It is most set apart. As the sin offering is, so is the trespass offering. There is one Torah for them. The priest that makes atonement therewith shall have it. So we need to understand that the priest partakes part of the sacrifice that's offered. And this is part of the worship or the service to Yah when he eats of the sacrifice or the offering that is given to Yah. And the priest that offers any man's burnt offering, even the priest shall have to himself the skin of the burnt offering which he has offered. And all the meat offering that is baked in the oven, and all that is dressed in the frying pan and in the pan, shall be the priest that offers it. And every meat offering mingled with oil and dry shall all the sons of Aharon have, one as much as another. And this is the Torah of the sacrifice of peace offerings, which he shall offer unto Yahuwah. So again, the meat offering includes the grain and other offerings that are offered to Yah. If he offer it for a thanksgiving, then he shall offer with the sacrifice of thanksgiving unleavened cakes mingled with oil, and unleavened wafers anointed with oil, and cakes mingled with oil of fine flour fried. Besides the cakes, he shall offer for his offering leavened bread with the sacrifice of thanksgiving of his peace offerings, and of it he shall offer one out of the whole oblation for a heave offering unto Yahuwah, and it shall be the priest that sprinkles the blood of the peace offerings. So again, the Kahan, the priest that is offering this offering before Yah, partakes of the food or the meat that is offered to Yah. And the flesh of the sacrifice of his peace offerings for thanksgiving shall be eaten the same day that it is offered. He shall not leave any of it until the morning. But if the sacrifice of his offering be a vow or voluntary offering, it shall be eaten the same day that he offers his sacrifice, and on the morrow also the remainder of it shall be eaten. But the remainder of the flesh of the sacrifice on the third day shall be burnt with fire. And if any of the flesh of the sacrifice of his peace offerings be eaten at all on the third day, it shall not be accepted, neither shall it be imputed unto him that offers it. It shall be an abomination, and the soul that eats of it shall bear his iniquity. And the flesh that touches any unclean thing shall not be eaten. It shall be burnt with fire. And as for the flesh, all that be clean shall eat thereof. But the soul that eats of the flesh of the sacrifice of peace offerings that pertain unto Yahuwah, having his uncleanness upon him, even that soul shall be cut off from his people. Moreover, the soul that shall touch any unclean thing, as the uncleanness of man, or any unclean beast, or any abominable unclean thing, and eat of the flesh of the sacrifice of peace offerings which pertain unto Yahuwah, even that soul shall be cut off from his people. So this is giving the instruction of how the priesthood is to deal with eating a portion of the offerings given to Yah. So the sacrifice of food to Yah and eating a portion of it is a form of worship or service to Yah. Shemot, Exodus chapter 34. And he said, Behold, I make a covenant. Before all your people I will do marvels, such as have not been done in all the earth, nor in any nation. And all the people among which you are shall see the work of Yahuwah, for it is a terrible thing that I will do with you. Observe you that which I command you this day. Behold, I will drive out before you the Amorite, and the Canaanite, and the Hittite, and the Perizzite, and the Hivite, and the Jebusite. Take heed to yourself, lest you make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land where you go, lest it be for a snare in the midst of you. But you shall destroy their altars, break their images, and cut down their groves. For you shall worship no other all, for Yahuwah, whose name is jealous, is a jealous all. Lest you make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land, and they go a-whoring after their Alim, and do sacrifice unto their Alim, and one call you, and you eat of his sacrifice. And you take of their daughters unto your sons, and their daughters go a-whoring after their Alim, and make your sons go a-whoring after their Alim. So we see that the covenant that Yah made with the Israelites is a marriage covenant. And with that marriage covenant, if an Israelite does service or does worship to a different mighty one, that is considered adultery. That is considered fornication, going a-whoring. As Israelites, we are bound by an eternal marriage covenant to serve Yah. And Yah tells his people, Bani Yashral, the children of Yashral, not to eat food sacrificed to other mighty ones.
Carries over from the Tanakh is this exact message, where it talks about not eating food offered to idols. Now, they're not talking about, going to the pagan temple and you're standing there and they slaughter the animal to Zeus and you're splashed with the blood and then you eat the meat. What they're talking about is you go to the marketplace and they say, hey, this meat is 50% off. Why is it so cheap? Well, it was sacrificed to Zeus, and since he can't eat it, the priests want to make some money, so now they're selling it. Whoa. I don't want any of that.
Right.
I don't want anything to do with that.
Zeus is losing his shirt on the deal. It's just not good.
Well, no, it's a great deal for him, because somebody brought this meat to the temple, and by you buying the meat and consuming it, you're doing Zeus a favor. You're consuming it. It's actually a ritual act of you consuming it. When I was a teenager, I was invited to a free vegetarian meal. And I'm like, wow, the food's free and it's this exotic food, and why would it be free? And the guy said, well, it's at the temple of Krishna in Chicago.
Oh, wow.
I grew up in Chicago. It's a temple of Krishna. And since Krishna can't eat it, everyone's invited to come and eat the food, and by consuming it, the sacrifice goes to Krishna. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not allowed to do that. That's against my Bible.
Right,
Wow.
right. So let me
I actually encountered that exact thing in the 20th century.
let me
Do me a huge favor and smash the like button. And also consider subscribing. It really helps me to grow the channel. And the more the channel grows, the more we all can spread the word. Now let's talk about Balak and Balaam. Bamidbar, Numbers chapter 22. And the children of Yashral set forward and pitched in the plains of Moab on this side of Jordan by Jericho. And Balak the son of Zippor saw all that Yashral had done to the Amorites. And Moab was sore afraid of the people, because they were many. And Moab was distressed because of the children of Yashral. And Moab said unto the elders of Midian, now shall this company lick up all that are round about us, as the ox licks up the grass of the field. And Balak the son of Zippor was king of the Moabites at that time. So as the children of Yashral came out of Mitzrayim, out of Egypt, and were on their way through the wilderness, all the other nations started to fear. And here in particular we have the Moabites and the Midianites, and Balak being the king of the Moabites at this time. He sent messengers therefore unto Balaam the son of Beor to Pethor, which is by the river of the land of the children of his people, to call him, saying, Behold, there is a people come out from Egypt. Behold, they cover the face of the earth, and they abide over against me. Come now, therefore, I pray you, curse me this people, for they are too mighty for me. Peradventure I shall prevail, that we may smite them, and that I may drive them out of the land. For I wot that he whom you Barak is Baruch, and he whom you curse is cursed. So we have King Balak sending this message to Balaam, wanting him to put a curse upon the Israelites. So as we read the story about Balak and Balaam and how Balak commissioned Balaam to curse the children of Israel, however, Yah would not allow Balaam to put a curse upon his people. And he told Balaam not to say anything against the children of Israel, only what Yah put into his mouth, that was what he was to speak. So in chapter 23, we have Balaam speaking. Balaam is not a man that he should lie, neither the son of man that he should repent. Has he said, and shall he not do it? Or has he spoken, and shall he not make it good? Behold, I have received commandment to Barak, and he has Baruch, and I cannot reverse it. He has not beheld iniquity in Jacob, neither has he seen perverseness in Yashrael. Yahuwah Alik is with him, and the shout of a king is among them. Elohim brought them out of Egypt. He has, as it were, the strength of a unicorn. Surely there is no enchantment against Jacob, neither is there any divination against Yashrael. According to this time it shall be said of Jacob and of Yashrael, what has Elohim wrought? Okay, so this is the statement that was given to Balaam from Yah to speak and pronounce over the Israelites. Now what we see, he says, surely there is no enchantment against Jacob, neither is there any divination against Yashrael. This statement is dependent upon the previous statement in verse 21. He has not beheld iniquity in Jacob, neither has he seen perverseness in Yashrael. As long as the Israelites obey the laws, commandments, and statutes of Yah, there is no weapon formed against us that can be successful. No weapon formed against us shall prevail. However, if Israelites break the covenant, sin, transgress the Torah, disobey Yah, now the protection that is afforded by obeying the covenant is taken away. So let's see what happens. Chapter 25. And Yashrael abode in Shittim, and the people began to commit whoredom with the daughters of Moab. And they called the people unto the sacrifices of their Elohim, and the people did eat, and bowed down to their Elohim. And Yashrael joined himself unto the Lord Peor, and the anger of Yahuwah was kindled against Yashrael. Verse 9. And those that died in the plague were 24,000. So we see here that when Yashrael, the Israelites, ate of the sacrifices that were sacrificed to another mighty one, that was seen as a form of adultery, a form of sin, of transgressing the covenant. And because they ate of the meat of the food offered to foreign mighty ones, their protection was taken away. The anger of Yah was kindled against his people. Now let's talk about Jezebel, or Jezebel. Malachim, 1 Kings chapter 16. And in the 38th year of Asa, king of Yehuda, began Ahab, the son of Omri, to reign over Yashrael. And Ahab, the son of Omri, reigned over Yashrael in Samaria 22 years. And Ahab, the son of Omri, did evil in the sight of Yahuwah above all that were before him. And it came to pass, as if it had been a light thing for him to walk in the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, that he took to wife Jezebel, the daughter of Ethbaal, king of the Zidonians, and went and served the Lord and worshipped him. So this is after the split of the kingdom of Yashrael into two houses, the house of Yehuda and the house of Yashrael. Now the house of Yehuda had some good kings and some evil kings. However, the house of Yashrael only had evil kings. And Ahab, the son of Omri, was one of the worst. We see that he had Jezebel, as his wife. And he reared up an altar for the Lord in the house of the Lord, which he had built in Samaria. And Ahab made a grove, and Ahab did more to provoke Yahuwah Ali of Yashrael to anger than all the kings of Yashrael that were before him. Chapter 18. And it came to pass, when Ahab saw Eliyahu, that Ahab said unto him, Are you he that troubles Yashrael? And he answered, I have not troubled Yashrael, but you, and your father's house, in that you have forsaken the commandments of Yahuwah, and you have followed the Lord's. Now therefore sin and gather to me all Yashrael unto Mount Carmel, and the prophets of the Lord 450, and the prophets of the groves 400, which eat at Jezebel's table. So we see that Jezebel worshipped the Lord, and we see that she had hundreds of prophets that served the Lord. And those prophets ate of the sacrifices that were offered to the Lord, the mighty one whom they served. Yahuwah was not pleased with Ahab and his idolatry, and especially with the doings of his wife, Jezebel. Jeremiah chapter 7. Therefore pray not you for this people, neither lift up cry nor prayer for them, neither make intercession to me, for I will not hear you. See you not what they do in the cities of Yehuda and in the streets of Jerusalem? Their children gather wood, and the fathers kindle the fire, and the women knead their dough to make cakes to the Queen of Heaven, and to pour out drink offerings unto other Alaim, that they may provoke me to anger. Do they provoke me to anger, says Yahuwah? Do they not provoke themselves to the confusion of their own faces? So we see here Yah complaining to the prophet Yirmiyahu about the doings of the Yahudim, making cakes to the Queen of Heaven, offering food to other mighty ones, and provoking him to anger. Remember, he is Elkanah, a jealous all. We are not to break the marriage covenant and deal with other mighty ones as Israelites. Ezekiel chapter 33. Then the word of Yahuwah came unto me, saying, Son of man, they that inhabit those wastes of the land of Yashral speak, saying, Abraham was one, and he inherited the land. But we are many, the land is given us for inheritance. Wherefore say unto them, Thus says Adonai Yahuwah, You eat with the blood, and lift up your eyes toward your idols, and shed blood, and shall you possess the land? You stand upon your sword, you work abomination, and you defile everyone his neighbor's wife, and shall you possess the land? So this is Yah speaking through the prophet Hezekiel. The Israelites are saying, well, we're from the line of Abraham. Abraham was given this land, so we're in the land. It's our inheritance. But Yah is speaking against the Israelites, saying, you are being unfaithful. You are eating food offered to idols. Do you think you're going to stay in my land? So obviously this is a warning to stop breaking the covenant. Otherwise, Yah will kick the people out of his land. Second Maccabees. This is a time when the house of Yehuda, Judea, was under occupation by the Greeks and the Seleucid Empire. So let's read about how these foreigners oppressed the Yahudim. Not long after this, the king sent an old man of Athens to compel the Yahudim to depart from the laws of their fathers, and not to live according to the laws of Alaim. Verse 6, Neither was it lawful for a man to keep Shabbat days, or ancient fasts, or profess himself at all to be a Yehudi. And in the day of the king's birth, every month they were brought by bitter constraint to eat of the sacrifices. And when the fast of his mighty one was kept, the Yahudim were compelled to go in procession to his mighty one, carrying ivy. So we see what these wicked foreigners did and how they forced the Yahudim to break the covenant with Yah. So we see how on the king's birthday, the Yahudim were forced to eat of the sacrifices offered to foreign mighty ones. Moreover, there went out a decree to the neighbor cities of the nations by the suggestion of Ptolemy against the Yahudim, that they should observe the same fashions, and be partakers of their sacrifices. And whoso would not conform themselves to the manners of the nations should be put to death. Then might a man have seen the present misery. So these foreigners were forcing the Yahudim to break the eternal covenant with Yah. And part of that was eating food that was sacrificed to foreign mighty ones. Usha, Hosea chapter 4. Though you, Yashral, play the harlot, let not Yehuda offend, and come not you unto Gilgal, neither go you up to Beth-aven, nor swear, Yahuwah lives. For Yashral slides back as a backsliding heifer. Now Yahuwah will feed them as a lamb in a large place. Ephraim is joined to idols, let him alone. Their drink is sour, they have committed whoredom continually. Her rulers with shame do love, give you. So here we have Yah speaking through the prophet Husha, telling the Yahudim, those of the house of Yehuda, to leave the Israelites of the house of Yashral alone. Don't deal with them because they are joined to idols and they are refusing to repent. So we've established that Yah is not pleased with Israelites that eat food that is sacrificed to foreign mighty ones. Did that change in the so-called New Testament after the ministry, death, resurrection, and ascension of Yahushua HaMashiach? Did all of that change? Let's look in the book of Acts, chapter 15. And after they had held their peace, Jacob answered, saying, Men and brothers, hearken unto me. Wherefore my sentence is, that we trouble not them which from among the nations are turned to Elohim, but that we write unto them that they abstain from pollutions of idols, and from fornication, and from things strangled, and from blood. For Musha of old time has in every city them that preach him, being read in the synagogues every Shabbat day. So when there was a controversy among the Yehudi believers of how to deal with the Israelite believers that were returning back to the covenant from the house of Yashral, how do we accept them in? Should they be circumcised first before we allow them to join our assemblies? After some discussion, Yaqub, who was the leader of the assembly, made this pronouncement. We're going to give these Israelites 4 requirements that they must adhere to in order for us to accept them within our assemblies. And everything else, including circumcision, they're going to learn as they sit with us every Shabbat and learn the Torah in the synagogues. So among the 4 requirements, they're to abstain from pollution of idols and from fornication. And of course, to eat food sacrificed to a foreign mighty one is considered adultery, a form of fornication, because the covenant that the Israelites have with Yah is a marriage covenant. Then pleased it the apostles and elders with the whole assembly to send chosen men of their own company to Antioch with Shaul and Barnabas, namely Yehuda surnamed Barsabba, and Silas, chief men among the brothers. And they wrote letters by them after this manner. The apostles and elders and brothers send greetings unto the brothers which are of the nations in Antioch and Syria and Cilicia. Verse 28. For it seemed good to the Ruach HaKodesh and to us to lay upon you no greater burden than these necessary things, that you abstain from meats offered to idols, and from blood, and from things strangled, and from fornication, from which if you keep yourselves, you shall do well. Fare you well. Again, this is after the ministry, death, and resurrection of Yahushua HaMashiach, and the Yahudim, those that were faithful to Yah, and those that believed in Yahushua HaMashiach, made it abundantly clear that Israelites are not to eat food offered to foreign mighty ones. Chazon, Revelation, chapter 2. And to the messenger of the assembly in Pergamos write, These things says he, which has the sharp sword with two edges. I know your works, and where you dwell, even where Hashatan's seat is, and you hold fast my name, and have not denied my faith, even in those days wherein Antipas was my faithful martyr, who was slain among you, where Hashatan dwells. But I have a few things against you, because you have there them that hold the doctrine of Balaam, who taught Balak to cast a stumbling block before the children of Yasharal, to eat things sacrificed unto idols, and to commit fornication. Remember, back in Bamidbar, Numbers, what Balak and Balaam did. And here we have Yahushua HaMashiach giving a warning against eating things sacrificed unto foreign mighty ones, which is fornication, adultery. And unto the messenger of the assembly in Thyatira write, These things says the son of Elohim, who has his eyes unto a flame of fire, and his feet are like fine brass. I know your works in charity and service and faith, and your patience and your works, and the last to be more than the first. Notwithstanding, I have a few things against you, because you suffered that woman Isabel, which calls herself a prophetess, to teach and to seduce my servants to commit fornication, and to eat things sacrificed unto idols. And I gave her space to repent of her fornication, and she repented not. Again, Yahushua HaMashiach, speaking against eating food sacrificed to foreign mighty ones. So did this change? Or is Yahushua HaMashiach consistent from Bereshit or Genesis to Chazon, Revelation? It's one Torah, an eternal covenant. The law, statutes, and commandments do not change. We have demonstrated a consistent message throughout the Tanakh, going into the writings of the so-called New Testament, that Israelites are not permitted to eat food sacrificed to foreign mighty ones. That is from the Torah to the prophets to Jacob and the Jerusalem Council to the words of Yahushua HaMashiach. Yah does not want Israelites to eat food sacrificed to foreign mighty ones. Now in Christianity, they'll take Shaul, the letters of Paul, and try to find license to sin, to break the commandments of Yah. But before we get into the letters of Shaul, we need to understand something. Let's read the letter of Kepha, 2 Peter chapter 3. Wherefore, beloved, seeing that you look for such things, be diligent that you may be found of him in peace, without spot and blameless. And account that the long-suffering of our Master is salvation, even as our beloved brother Shaul, according to the wisdom given unto him, has written unto you. As also in all his epistles, speaking in them of these things, in which are some things hard to be understood, which they that are unlearned and unstable wrest, as they do also the other scriptures, unto their own destruction. You therefore, beloved, seeing you know these things before, beware lest you also, being led away with the error of the wicked, fall from your own steadfastness. So Kepha is warning that even in his day, 2,000 years ago, there were people that twisted the words of Shaul to destruction, twisted his words into license to break the everlasting covenant, to sin, to disobey the Torah of Yah. So let's have this clear understanding before we enter into the letters of Shaul. We already had the words of Jacob and the Jerusalem Council and what they spoke about not eating food sacrificed to idols. And we also had the words of Yahushua HaMashiach speaking about not eating food sacrificed to foreign mighty ones. Now, what authority would Shaul or Paul have to teach something against, number one, Yahushua HaMashiach, the king, and then against Jacob, the leader of the assembly? 1 Corinthians chapter 5. I wrote unto you in an epistle not to company with fornicators, yet not altogether with fornicators of this world, or with the covetous or extortioners, or with idolaters, for then must you needs go out of the world. But now I have written unto you not to keep company with any man that is called a brother, to be a fornicator or covetous, or an idolater, or railer, or a drunkard, or an extortioner. With such a one, no, not to eat. For what have I to do to judge them also that are without? Do not you judge them that are within? But them that are without Alim judge. Therefore put away from among yourselves that wicked person. So in this context, Shaul is referring to a particular Israelite that is breaking the sexual commandments, sleeping with his father's wife. But we see what he speaks here, not to keep company with any man that is called a brother. In other words, if you were not to keep company with people that don't obey Yah, you would have to separate yourselves from everyone in the world and be a hermit, right? So he's not talking about everyone in the world, he's not talking about the nations, but to separate yourself from a fellow Israelite who refuses to keep the covenant. You're not to associate with other Israelites that are rebels. This is what he's saying. Chapter 8. Now as touching things offered unto idols, you know that we all have knowledge. Knowledge puffs up, but charity edifies. And if any man think that he knows anything, he knows nothing yet as he ought to know. But if any man love Elohim, the same is known of him. As concerning, therefore, the eating of those things that are offered in sacrifice unto idols, we know that an idol is nothing in the world, and that there is none other Elohim but one. So Shaul or Paul, he's not saying that there are not other mighty ones. He's not saying that there are not spirits or other powers in the world. He's going to explain what he's talking about. For though there be that are called Elohim, whether in heaven or in earth, as there be Elohim many, and lords many, but to us there is but one Elohim, the Father, of whom are all things, and we in him, and one Master, Yahushua HaMashiach, by whom are all things, and we by him. So this is what he's talking about. We have to understand that the Israelites were not monotheistic. They were henotheistic. And that means that the ancient Israelites understood that there were many powers in the world. There are many mighty ones in the world. But we serve only one. We serve the one that made a covenant with our fathers, that is Yah. So for us, for Israelites, there is one Elohim. That's what he's saying. And he's not saying that there are not other powers in the world, but for Israelites, there is one. There's only one that we are to serve. There's only one that we have an eternal covenant with. Howbeit, there is not in every man that knowledge. For some with conscience of the idol unto this hour eat it as a thing offered unto an idol, and their conscience being weak is defiled. So what is he saying? Not every Israelite has the knowledge that we are only to serve Yah. Of course, we have Israelites that are Christians. We have Israelites that are Muslim. We have Israelites that are atheists. Israelites that are Hindu. Israelites that are Buddhist. Israelites of every belief. Because being an Israelite is not a religion. It is a bloodline. Right? So there are some Israelites that offer things to a far mighty one in worship or service to that far mighty one. Their conscience being weak is defiled because their conscience is supposed to be what? The Torah. And their knowledge of the Torah is weak, so they are defiled. How are they defiled? They're defiled with sin, with breaking the Torah. Verse 8, but meat commends us not to Elohim, for neither if we eat are we the better, neither if we eat not are we the worse. But what is Shaul saying here? Unlike other foreign mighty ones, when we offer offerings to Yah, when we offer food offerings to Yah, that doesn't make us more righteous to Yah. And if we don't offer food offerings to Yah, that doesn't make us less righteous before Yah. What makes us righteous is obedience to His Torah. And what makes us unrighteous is disobedience of His Torah. This is what he's saying. But take heed, lest by any means this liberty of yours become a stumbling block to them that are weak. For if any man see you which have knowledge sit at meat in the idol's temple, shall not the conscience of him which is weak be emboldened to eat those things which are offered to idols? So let's break this down. Take heed lest by any means this liberty of yours. What liberty? Jacob talks about the Torah of liberty. And Yahushua HaMashiach talks about, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. What is truth? The word of Yah is truth. The Torah is liberty. The Torah is our freedom. So, liberty means obedience to the Torah. Don't let your obedience to the Torah become a stumbling block to them that are weak. Weak in what? Weak in the knowledge of Torah. Weak in the knowledge of the laws, commandments, and statutes of Yah. For if any man see you which have knowledge, sit at meat. Now that phrase that's translated as sit at meat is one word, which is in the Greek katekaimai, which means to have lain down, to lie prostrate, to recline. So, for example, if a brother in this time wanted to outreach to Israelites in the diaspora, scattered among the nations, and he found a group of Israelites in a temple of a foreign mighty one, and they're eating, and he sits down with these brothers to preach to them the good news of the renewed covenant. If another brother who just happens to walk by sees you sitting with these other brothers in the idol's temple, he's going to assume what? He's going to assume that you are partaking of the sacrifices that are offered in that temple, which you are not, because you understand the Torah and you understand that you're not supposed to eat food sacrificed to idols. But it's the appearance of evil. And when he sees you and assumes that you're breaking the Torah, he's going to say, well, this Yehudi, this brother who came to teach us the Torah, well, he's eating food offered to idols. So I guess it's not wrong for me to also partake of food offered to idols. This is what Shaul is saying. You know that you're not doing wrong. You know that you're not partaking of the food offered to foreign mighty ones. But if it appears as if you're doing so, and a fellow Israelite sees you, you may give that Israelite reason or embolden him to break the commandments and eat food offered to another mighty one. So we need to look at this story from 2 Maccabees to give an illustration about what Shaul was talking about. Eliezer, one of the principal scribes, an aged man and of a well-favored countenance, was constrained to open his mouth and to eat swine's flesh. But he, choosing rather to die with esteem than to live stained with such an abomination, spit it forth, and came of his own accord to the torment. And it behooved them to come that are resolute to stand out against such things as are not lawful for love of life to be tasted. So again, this is during the time when the house of Yehuda was under oppression of the Greeks and the Seleucid Empire. And these foreigners were forcing the Yahudim to break the commandments of Yah. And we see here that were trying to force the Yahudim to eat unclean animals. We have this elder who refused to do so, even on pain of death. But they that had the charge of that wicked feast, for the old acquaintance they had with the man, taking him aside, besought him to bring flesh of his own provision, such as was lawful for him to use, and make it as if he did eat of the flesh taken from the sacrifice commanded by the king. So they were forcing the Yahudim to eat the food sacrificed to the king's mighty one. But these guards, these soldiers, gave favor to this old man, this elder, and told him, you know what? We don't want to kill you. You just bring some flesh that is lawful for you to eat, and we'll just pretend that you're eating the food that was sacrificed to the foreign mighty one. That in doing so, he might be delivered from death, and for the old friendship with them find favor. But he began to consider discreetly, and as become his age, and the excellency of his ancient years, and the honor of his gray head, whereon was come, and his most honest education from a child, or rather the set-apart Torah made and given by Elohim. Therefore he answered accordingly, and willed them straightways to send him to the grave. So he refused to do that. He refused to pretend to eat the sacrifice of the king, that sacrifice to the foreign mighty one. Now let's listen to the elder's response. For it becomes not our age, said he, in any wise to dissemble. Dissemble means to deceive. Whereby many young persons might think that Eliezer, being 80 years old and 10, that's 90 years old, were now gone to a strange religion. And so they, through my hypocrisy and desire to live a little time and a moment longer, should be deceived by me, and I get a stain to my old age and make it abominable. For though for the present time I should be delivered from the punishment of men, yet should I not escape the hand of the Almighty, neither alive nor dead. So this is what the elder responded to those soldiers. Even if I do this, if I take clean flesh and pretend that I'm eating the food that was sacrificed to the king's mighty one, that foreign king, even though I'm not partaking of that unclean sacrifice, all the Yahudim that see me will be confused. Their faith will be brought down. Their faith will be brought low. And they will start to question their faith. They will become weak in their faith. And they will start to do what? they will then turn away from the Torah and partake of these unset apart, these evil sacrifices. And I'm not going to use my station, I'm not going to use my position, I'm not going to use my honor and my age to deceive my people into breaking the laws, commandments, and statutes of Yah. Wherefore now, manfully changing this life, I show myself such as one as my age requires, and leave a notable example to such as be young to die willingly and courageously for the honorable and set apart laws. And when he had said these words, immediately he went to the torment. And they that let him, changing the good will they bare him a little before into hatred, because the aforesaid speeches proceeded, as they thought, from a desperate mind. So the old man refused to save his own life, but chose to be an example of a righteous Yehudi willing to die to keep the Torah. But when he was ready to die with stripes, he groaned and said, It is manifest unto Yahuwah that has the set-apart knowledge, that whereas I might have been delivered from death, I now endure sore pains in body by being beaten, but in soul am well content to suffer these things, because I fear him. And thus this man died, leaving his death for an example of a noble courage and a memorial of virtue, not only unto young men, but unto all his nation. So again, let's go to another letter of Shaul. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5. Prove all things, hold fast that which is good, abstain from all appearance of evil. And the very Elohim of peace sanctify you wholly. And I pray, Elohim, your whole ruach and soul and body be preserved blameless unto the coming of our Master, Yahushua HaMashiach. So abstain from all appearance of evil, just like the elder Eleazar in 2 Maccabees refused to even appear as if he was eating the food offered to a foreign mighty one. This is what Shaul is talking about. But take heed, lest by any means this liberty of yours become a stumbling block to them that are weak. For if any man see you, which has knowledge, sit at meat, we saw that translation sit at meat should be translated as sitting or reclining or laying down. In the idol's temple, shall not the conscience of him which is weak be emboldened to eat those things which are offered to idols? So the point he's saying is that we don't want to encourage a fellow Israelite to eat those things which are offered to foreign mighty ones, because that's breaking the Torah. We don't want him to do that. And through your knowledge shall the weak brother perish for whom Mashiach died. Why would he perish? If he's eating something offered to a foreign mighty one, he's breaking the Torah. That's sin. But when you sin so against the brothers and wound their weak conscience, you sin against Mashiach. So how are you sinning against your brother, your fellow Israelite? By encouraging him to break the commandments of Yah. Wherefore, if meat make your brother offend, I will eat no flesh while the world stands, lest I make my brother to offend. So I'm not going to put myself in a position that would be misunderstood by my Israelite brother, that he would think it's okay for him to eat something offered to a foreign mighty one. Chapter 10. Moreover, brothers, I would not that you should be ignorant how that all our fathers were under the cloud, and all passed through the sea, and were all baptized unto Musha into the cloud and in the sea, and did all eat the same spiritual meat, again, meat referring to food, and did all drink the same spiritual drink, for they drank of that spiritual rock that followed them, and that rock was Mashiach. Again, when he's talking about brothers, he's talking to fellow Israelites. He's not talking to foreigners. That's how he can say how that all our fathers were under the cloud. So he's not talking to foreigners, he's talking to Israelites. These are the brothers. But with many of them Elohim was not well pleased, for they were overthrown in the wilderness. Now these things were our examples, to the intent we should not lust after evil things, as they also lusted. Neither be you idolaters, as were some of them, as it is written, the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. So this is talking about the incident with the golden calf. So he's saying this is our example, that we are not to eat food offered to foreign mighty ones. Neither let us commit fornication, as some of them committed, and fell in one day 23,000. This is referring to the incident with Balaam and Balak, who sent the Moabite and Midianite women to invite the Israelite men to eat food offered to foreign mighty ones. Neither let us tempt Mashiach, as some of them also tempted and were destroyed of serpents. Neither murmur you, as some of them also murmured and were destroyed of the destroyer. So Shaul is agreeing with the Tanakh, with the Torah, with the commandment given to the Israelites not to eat food offered to foreign mighty ones. And he's saying that was given as an example for us, that we should not eat food offered to foreign mighty ones. Now all these things happen unto them for ensamples, and they are written for our admonition, upon whom the ends of the world are come. Wherefore let him that thinks he stands take heed lest he fall. There has no temptation taken you, but such as is common to man. But Elohim is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above that you are able, but will with the temptation also make a way of escape, that you may be able to bear it. Wherefore, my dearly beloved, flee from idolatry. So flee from temptation. And again, sometimes the escape from temptation may be death, like we saw with the righteous elder in 2 Maccabees. The temptation, the test, is to break the commandment, is to eat the food offered to another mighty one. And we're not to give in to that temptation. I speak as to wise men. Judge you what I say. So Shaul is saying, I'm speaking to men that understand the Torah. So judge what I am saying according to the Torah. The cup of Barakah which we Baruch, is it not the communion of the blood of Mashiach? The bread which we break, is it not the communion of the body of Mashiach? For we being many are one bread, and one body, for we are all partakers of that one bread. Behold, Yasharal after the flesh. Are not they which eat of the sacrifices partakers of the altar? So he's talking to Israelites. He's talking to his fellow brothers, his fellow Israelites. The we, being many, are one bread. Who is the we? Israelites. And he asks them a question. Again, he's talking to those who understand the Torah. Are not they which eat of the sacrifices partakers of the altar? And we read that in Wa'ikra or Leviticus. How the Kahanim, the priests, eat a portion of the offerings given to Yah. What say I then, that the idol is anything, or that which is offered in sacrifice to idols is anything? But I say that the things which the nations sacrifice, they sacrifice unto devils, unto demons, and not to Elohim. And I would not that you should have fellowship with devils. You cannot drink the cup of the master and the cup of devils. You cannot be partakers of the master's table and of the table of devils. Do we provoke Yahuwah to jealousy? Are we stronger than he? So Shaul in his letter is not giving the people a license to eat food sacrificed to idols. In fact, he's teaching the opposite. He's teaching obedience to the Torah. He's teaching the Israelites not to eat food sacrificed to idols. Do we provoke Yahuwah to jealousy? We read that in Shemot. He is a jealous El Kanah. We are not to eat food sacrificed to other mighty ones. All things are lawful for me, but all things are not expedient. All things are lawful for me, but all things edify not. Let no man seek his own, but every man another's wealth. Whatsoever is sold in the shambles that eat, asking no question for conscience sake. For the earth belongs to Yahuwah and the fullness thereof. Okay. So in verse 23, all things are lawful for me. Is Shaul talking about every single thing in existence? Is murder lawful? Is adultery lawful? Is eating pork lawful? This is not what he's saying. He's saying the things that are lawful for me, not everything that is lawful is expedient. So he's going back to that example. If you're in a temple of an idol, maybe you're ministering to other Israelites that are in the diaspora. You're trying to bring them back into the covenant. You don't want to do something that might be misinterpreted as worship to that foreign mighty one. Even though what you're actually doing is lawful. You're preaching the truth to these Israelites of the diaspora. but you don't want to give the appearance of evil. Verse 25, whatsoever is sold in the shambles, shambles means the market, that eat, asking no question for conscience sake. In verse 25, I don't believe that Shaul is talking about flesh. I believe he's talking about plant-based food. Why do I say that? Not only when you're considering eating the flesh of an animal, not only do you have to concern yourself with it being the flesh of a clean animal, or it not being sacrificed to a foreign mighty one, but you also have to consider it being slaughtered properly, that it didn't die of itself, it wasn't found dead, it wasn't torn by wild animals. You have to make sure that the blood was drained properly. So there's all kinds of other things besides it being offered to an idol when you're talking about the flesh of animals. So this leads me to conclude that in verse 25 he's talking about plant-based food. If any of them that believe not bid you to a feast, and you be disposed to go, whatsoever is set before you, eat, asking no question for conscience sake. But if any man say unto you, this is offered in sacrifice unto idols, eat not for his sake that showed it, for conscience sake. For the earth belongs to Yahuwah and the fullness thereof. Conscience, I say, not your own, but of the other. For why is my liberty judged of another man's conscience? So again, I believe what Shaul is talking about here is plant-based food. Because if you're sitting at a feast and the host of the feast is a foreigner or an Israelite that does not observe the Torah, there's many other things that you need to consider with animal-based food other than was it offered to an idol. You have to consider that if it was mixed with other flesh of unclean animals, if the utensils were clean, again, if it was found dead, if it was properly slaughtered, if the blood was drained, if the hip ligaments were removed, all these other things come into the picture other than just it being offered to an idol. Here, it seems like Shaul is leaning on the law of ignorance. The law of ignorance says that if an Israelite breaks a commandment, sins in ignorance or by mistake, he's able to bring a sin sacrifice, a sin offering for that transgression of the Torah. But if a man with purpose or presumptuously breaks the commandments of Yah, there is no sin sacrifice to cover that offense. So it seems like Shaul is leaning on that law of ignorance, where he talks about, if any man say unto you, this is offered in sacrifice unto idols, eat not for his sake that showed it, and for conscience sake. So if you didn't know, and you ate it and it was offered to an idol, you can be forgiven for that if you were ignorant. But you not being ignorant, now you cannot eat it. For myself, personally, I'm going to split from Shaul on this point. I'm not going to chance whether I know or not if something has been offered to an idol. I want to keep myself from offense. I want to keep myself from breaking the Torah. I want to be innocent before Yah. For if I by grace be a partaker, why am I evil spoken of for that for which I give thanks? Whether therefore you eat or drink, or whatsoever you do, do all to the esteem of Elohim. So, if you eat something that is offered to a foreign mighty one, is that giving esteem to Yah? No, that's giving esteem to a foreign mighty one. So again, Shaul is not saying it's okay to eat food offered to an idol. Give none offense, neither to the Yahudim, nor to the nations, nor to the assembly of Elohim. Even as I please all men in all things, not seeking my own profit, but the profit of many, that they may be saved. So what is he saying? That they may be saved. Saved from what? Saved from sin. What is sin? Breaking the Torah. So I'm going to restrict myself not to even give the appearance of evil, so that I can be an example to my brothers of how to keep the Torah. So I'm not going to even appear as if I am even possibly eating food offered to an idol. Again, let's make it very clear that Shaul or Paul is not HaMashiach. And even if it appears that he is teaching that it's okay to eat food sacrificed to idols, we already have the Torah, we have the prophets, we have Yahushua HaMashiach himself, and we have Jacob and the Jerusalem assembly all in agreement saying that it is not permissible for Israelites to eat food offered to idols. So if it is even true that Shaul or Paul said something contradictory to what Mashiach said, I'm going to follow Yahushua HaMashiach and put Shaul to the side. Let's conclude with the example of Daniel. But Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the portion of the king's meat, nor with the wine which he drank. Therefore he requested of the prince of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself. So Daniel was taken captive into Babylon and was chosen to serve the king of Babylon. And when he refused to eat the food provided by the king, that could have been a death sentence for him. But he purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself. Daniel is an example for us today. Bible quiz. What is biblical worship? What are some ways of Israelites eating to worship Yah? What are the instructions for the unclean person eating food offered to Yah? How does Yah view Israelites eating sacrifices offered to idols? How did Balaam and Balak entice the Israelites to break the eternal covenant? What were some practices of Jezebel that Yah hates? What are the 4 requirements suggested by Yaakov and the Jerusalem Council for Israelites of the house of Yasharal to join the assembly? Drop your answers in the comment section below. Fear Elohim and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. Bind up the testimony, seal the Torah among my disciples. Shalom, family. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to click the subscribe button. Like, comment, and share.